Let's talk about the first betrayal, the one that cuts the deepest, the betrayal of trust. You see, trust isn't just a word we throw around in relationships. It's the invisible thread that binds two people together emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. It's the sacred agreement that says, I can be vulnerable with you. I can let you see me without armor, without fear. But when that thread is snapped, when trust is violated, it doesn't just hurt, it changes you. It rewires the way you see love, the way you see people, even the way you see yourself. The reason the betrayal of trust is so devastating is because it violates something primal in us. As human beings, we are wired to connect. From the moment we're born, trust is our first emotional language. We trust that we'll be fed, held, protected. And when that trust is betrayed in adulthood by someone we've chosen, someone we've opened our heart to, it reawakens that ancient fear. What if I can't be safe with anyone? And here's the truth most people don't want to face. Trust doesn't break suddenly. It erodes quietly. It begins with small lies, tiny omissions, little half-truths. Someone says, it's not a big deal. But that's the first crack in the foundation. Because once you start adjusting your expectations, once you start doubting what you see or feel, you begin gaslighting yourself. You start saying things like, maybe I'm overreacting, or maybe I'm too sensitive. No, you're not too sensitive. You're just feeling the truth before you're ready to admit it. When trust breaks, you don't just lose faith in that person, you lose a part of your emotional stability. And that's why so many people stay. They think if they can forgive fast enough, if they can rebuild quickly enough, it won't hurt as much. But you can't rebuild something with the same hands that broke it. Not until those hands are willing to own what they did, to understand it, and to change. Forgiveness without accountability isn't healing. It's self-abandonment. I want you to think about this. Every time you excuse a lie, every time you look past deceit because you're afraid of losing someone, what you're really losing is yourself. You're teaching the other person how little truth means to you. You're teaching them that your boundaries are flexible, that your self-respect is negotiable. And that's a dangerous lesson to teach. Now, rebuilding trust is possible, but it's rare. And it's not easy. It requires two people who are radically honest, radically humble, and radically willing to do the work. Most of the time, one person is ready and the other isn't. That's when you need to make a decision. Are you rebuilding with a partner? Or are you carrying the entire weight of the relationship alone? Because if you're the only one trying, you're not rebuilding, you're rescuing. And I want to challenge you with this thought. Sometimes the most powerful act of love isn't forgiveness. It's release. Releasing someone doesn't mean you hate them. It means you love yourself enough to stop participating in your own pain. It means you're choosing peace over chaos, truth over illusion, growth over comfort. When someone betrays your trust, they reveal who they are. When you continue to allow it, you reveal who you think you are. Never let someone's deceit define your worth. Never let their lies become the ceiling of your future, because trust, real trust, is sacred. It's the heartbeat of love. Once it's shattered, you can forgive for your own peace, but you should never forget what that experience taught you. The lesson is simple. Once someone shows you that they can't protect your heart, stop giving them the map to it. You said, expand key point \2 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Tony Robbins' approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to ChatGPT. ChatGPT said, loyalty. That's the second betrayal, and it's one most people don't see coming until it's too late. Loyalty isn't about grand gestures or public displays. It's about what a person does when no one's watching. It's about whether they protect you when you're not in the room, whether they stand beside you when it's inconvenient, and whether they choose us when life tempts them to choose me. You see, loyalty is the backbone of love. Without it, everything else collapses. You can have passion, chemistry, even shared dreams, but if loyalty isn't there, none of it matters. Because love without loyalty isn't love at all. It's self-interest dressed up as affection. When someone betrays loyalty, they're not just breaking a commitment, they're breaking alignment. They're saying, my needs, my image, my impulses matter more than the foundation we built together. And that's a devastating realization, because loyalty is supposed to be the invisible safety net beneath every risk you take together. It's what allows you to open up, to be real, to be vulnerable. When that net disappears, every moment of intimacy suddenly feels like free fall. The most dangerous thing about disloyalty is that it often starts small. It begins with divided attention, with secrets that sound harmless, with a quiet shifting of priorities. You start to notice the distance, not in miles, but in energy. Their tone changes, their commitment fades, and before you know it, you're competing with distractions, people, or pursuits that shouldn't even be in the picture. But loyalty isn't situational. It doesn't show up only when it's easy. True loyalty reveals itself in difficulty, when you disagree, when you're under pressure, when you're tested. That's when character steps in. Because when someone loves you, they don't abandon you when it's inconvenient. They don't run when you're imperfect. They stand firm. They fight with you, not against you. The tragedy is that many people mistake tolerance for loyalty. They think they're still here, so they must care. But presence doesn't always equal devotion. Sometimes people stay for comfort, for control, for familiarity, not for you. And that's why loyalty should never be measured by time spent, but by consistency shown. I want you to remember this. Betrayal of loyalty exposes value systems. It reveals who sees the relationship as a partnership and who sees it as a convenience. The loyal person understands that love is a responsibility, not just an emotion. It demands honor, integrity, and consistency. The disloyal person, on the other hand, seeks what's easiest, what feels good in the moment, and in doing so, they trade depth for temporary satisfaction. When loyalty breaks, it leaves behind confusion. You start replaying everything, trying to pinpoint the moment they stopped choosing you. You search for logic where there is none. But here's the truth: loyalty doesn't vanish by accident. It's always a choice. People choose to betray you long before they act on it. The act is just the symptom. The decision happened quietly in their mind. And that's where your power lies, in recognizing that betrayal says everything about their character and nothing about your worth. Don't internalize someone's disloyalty as evidence of your inadequacy. You didn't lose because you loved deeply. They lost because they didn't know how to honor something real. You can forgive a lot of things, but never forgive the kind of betrayal that proves someone never truly had your back. Because once a person shows they'll abandon you for their own comfort, they'll do it again. Don't make the mistake of rebuilding with someone who already walked away when it mattered most. Loyalty isn't proven by what people promise, it's revealed by what they protect. So the next time you question someone's loyalty, stop listening to their words and start watching their consistency. Actions never lie. And when you find yourself standing in the ruins of a betrayal, remember this: losing someone who was never truly loyal isn't a loss, it's liberation. You said, Expand key point /3 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Tony Robbins' approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to ChatGPT. ChatGPT said, "Respect, this is the one that quietly decides the fate of every relationship. You can survive arguments, you can overcome distance, you can rebuild trust, but once respect is gone, the relationship is already dying. Because respect is the container that holds love. Without it, love spills everywhere, loses its shape, and eventually disappears. When someone disrespects you, they're telling you in actions or words, your boundaries don't matter. Your feelings are negotiable. And when that happens enough times, something inside you begins to shrink. You start editing yourself, what you say, what you feel, even how you show up, just to avoid conflict or criticism. That's not love, that's submission, and the moment you trade your self-respect for connection, you stop being in a relationship, you start being in a performance. Disrespect doesn't always come with shouting or insults. Sometimes it comes dressed as sarcasm, passive-aggressive comments, silent treatment, or dismissive laughter when you share something vulnerable. These are the small, sharp edges that cut into your spirit over time, and what's dangerous about them is their subtlety. Because you tell yourself it's not that bad, or they didn't mean it like that, but deep down you feel the erosion happening. You feel yourself disappearing. Real respect means honoring someone's individuality. It's saying, I see you. I value you as you are, not as I wish you were. When that disappears, love becomes control. And control is fear wearing the mask of care. People control when they're afraid of losing dominance, afraid of being exposed, afraid of vulnerability. But the truth is, you can't love someone you're trying to control. And you can't be loved by someone who needs to belittle you to feel powerful. So many people mistake attachment for respect. They think, they stay with me, so they must value me. But staying isn't always love. Sometimes it's dependency, sometimes it's guilt, sometimes it's comfort. Real respect doesn't need to be chained, it's freely given. It doesn't need to dominate. It seeks to understand. Here's the psychological truth. A relationship without respect rewires your identity. It changes the way you see yourself. You begin to internalize the way they treat you. Their criticism becomes your inner voice. Their contempt becomes your reflection. And before long, you're living small to fit inside their comfort zone. That's not partnership, that's emotional imprisonment. When respect is lost, love starts to feel like walking on eggshells. You never know what version of them you'll get, or what version of you will be acceptable today. You begin to measure peace by silence, not by understanding, and that's when you know you've traded connection for survival. But here's what I want you to understand. You teach people how to treat you. The moment you tolerate disrespect, you're setting the standard for your own mistreatment. You're signaling that your boundaries are flexible, your dignity is optional, and your worth is negotiable. Don't ever let anyone convince you that enduring disrespect is a sign of love. It's not strength, it's self-abandonment. When someone truly respects you, they might challenge you, but they won't belittle you. They'll disagree with you, but they won't humiliate you. Respect is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about being emotionally safe enough to show up fully, knowing you'll be met with understanding, not judgment. And if you've ever found yourself begging for basic respect, I want you to hear this clearly. You're already in the wrong place. Because love doesn't require you to beg. Respect doesn't have to be demanded. The moment you start asking someone to treat you like a human being, you've already seen who they are. So if you ever find yourself in a relationship where love exists but respect has died, remember this. Love without respect is manipulation. It's a slow erosion of self, and no amount of affection can replace the foundation of dignity. You can rebuild many things: trust, intimacy, even desire. But once someone stops respecting you, the only way to restore your peace is to walk away. Because respect isn't just about how they treat you, it's about how you decide to let yourself be treated. And that decision, ultimately, defines the kind of love you accept and the kind of life you live. You said, expand key point /4 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Tony Robbins' approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to ChatGPT. ChatGPT expand key point /4 into a 600-word segment that flows naturally within the overall speech, aligning seamlessly with the other key points. The tone should be intellectual and authoritative, yet accessible, mirroring Tony Robbins' approach. The language should be clear and direct, with a focus on psychological and philosophical depth. Avoid any formal headings, keeping the delivery conversational, as if speaking to an audience in a lecture or interview format. Conclude with a powerful, concise closing statement that leaves the audience with something to ChatGPT. ChatGPT said, "There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't happen with lies or infidelity. It happens in silence. It's when one person simply stops showing up. Not physically, but emotionally. It's when the calls get shorter, the effort fades, and the words 'I'm just tired' become an excuse for detachment. That's the betrayal of effort. And it's one of the most painful because it doesn't announce itself with drama. It seeps in quietly, unnoticed, until one day you realize you're the only one still trying. Love, at its core, is an action. It's not sustained by what we say. It's sustained by what we do consistently. Every relationship begins with energy, attention, curiosity. In those early days, effort feels effortless. But real love isn't proven in the beginning. It's revealed over time when the excitement fades and commitment is tested. That's when you see whether someone's love is built on emotion or discipline. Because effort isn't about feeling like it, it's about choosing to show up even when you don't. When someone stops trying, when they start taking the relationship for granted, it's not that they've simply changed, it's that they've stopped valuing what you built together. Effort is the daily investment that keeps love alive. Without it, connection dies of neglect. Think of it like a fire. It doesn't go out because of a storm. It goes out because no one bothered to add wood. The psychology behind this kind of betrayal runs deep. When one person consistently gives while the other withdraws, it creates emotional imbalance. The giver begins to feel unappreciated, unseen, and eventually resentful. Meanwhile, the one who stopped putting in effort becomes complacent. They assume the relationship will sustain itself, that love is self-renewing. But love isn't self-sustaining. It requires intention. It requires attention. It requires the willingness to nurture, not just consume. And here's the paradox. People often stay long after the effort has died because they remember what it used to be. They hold on to potential, not reality. They tell themselves they'll come around, or it's just a phase. But you can't build a future on the memory of who someone once was. You can't keep watering a dead plant and expect it to bloom again. The absence of effort is one of the clearest indicators of emotional withdrawal. It means the other person has stopped participating in the relationship's growth. They're physically there, but spiritually absent. They no longer ask questions. They stop listening deeply. They don't care about your inner world, just the convenience of your presence. And that's not love, that's possession. When you're the only one trying, you begin to confuse endurance for strength. You think staying means you're loyal, that your persistence will inspire them to change. But staying in a one-sided relationship doesn't make you strong, it makes you depleted. Real strength is knowing when to stop pouring into a cup that refuses to hold water. This kind of betrayal, the betrayal of effort, leaves scars that aren't visible. It teaches you to distrust consistency, to question your worth, to wonder if you were ever enough. But here's the truth. Their lack of effort doesn't define your value. It only reveals their capacity. Some people simply don't know how to love past the honeymoon stage, because love that requires work exposes who they really are. If someone has stopped showing up, you owe it to yourself to stop showing up for them. Because love that only survives on one person's energy is not love, it's dependency. And dependency is the slowest form of emotional death. So don't forgive repeated apathy. Don't make peace with indifference. Because when effort dies, respect soon follows, and trust isn't far behind. You deserve someone who doesn't need to be reminded to care. Someone for whom effort isn't a burden, but a natural expression of love.